greenhouse project is about growing vegetables in the community to help families and children to eat healthy food, to avoid junk food. Here in Arviat at stores, some vegetables are pretty expensive to buy for some families. So Arviat started having a greenhouse to grow vegetables, fresh food, healthy food. We hired summer students who are youth in Arviat to train how to grow vegetables in the community.
If you want to start growing fruits and vegetables in your community, one of the first things you need is a greenhouse, which is what we have back here. The top of the greenhouse, where the transparent tarp is going to go, you have to have it at an angle. That is to maximize the sunlight that's going to come in, because the sunlight's always high here. So having that angle will, yes, maximize the sunlight coming in. And what this does is trap all the sunlight inside so we keep it warm. There's a pretty big difference between the temperature on the ground and the higher up you go. So one of the things we're trying out is, maybe you could see in the back, we're going to try and put more plants higher up and see how that goes next year.
A few weeks ago, we borrowed trailer, Honda trailer. We went to the land and picked up soil. We took the bottom layer of the soil, we put it in the trailer. We used shovels to take the soil. Then we take the bottom layer, put it in soil, and then we brought it back to the greenhouse. Then we used the mesh to make it thinner, and now it's on these boxes.
How to seed in a dirt. So step one, we make a hole with our little pinky with maybe 1 or 2 inches. We make that hole and we put 3 or 4 seeds in that little hole. So after putting inside that hole, we cover it nicely, not like hard, so it can grow. After that, after covering, we add water so it can start growing plants.
So some of the types of fertilizer we're using here is compost, which is rotten fruits and vegetables, but also like organic matter, like tuktu or caribou stomachs, and any animal carcasses could also be really good for fertilizer. You just have to do the right steps to make sure you break it down enough that it turns into plant food, pretty much. So one thing we do here is we call into the northern store and the co-op store and ask for fruits or vegetables that have past their due date. And we take all that about once or twice a week and we bring it to our shop, and we have about 5 barrels, big 45-gallon barrels that we put the compost in. We make sure we weigh the compost, how much we're putting in each barrel, and right now we're putting the same amount in. So we put that rotting food in, mix it with some soil to make sure that we need like dry material, so dry soil, that's what we put in, local soil, and it needs to be at a warm enough temperature that the organisms start eating all the compost, and pretty much over time we keep spinning it and adding more compost, always weighing to make sure we know how much food is in there, and it decays, and the more and more it decays, the better compost it will make. One of the fertilizers we're using this year is qaqqaq seaweed. So first thing we did was take our Hondas with a bucket and pick up some seaweed out at the shore. We brought it back. We used several bins and different cleaning stations. So we washed them in buckets of water, and we brushed all the salt off. We did this about 3 or 4 times to ensure that most of the salt was off. And we started cutting it up into pretty small pieces, and then we blended it. So once it was all blended, we used it to put in one of the family grow boxes, and the rest we put in the greenhouse. So another compost we used was the worm farms. First thing we did was we have special boxes made for worm composting, and they're broken up into 4 or 5 separate layers. Then we get some dirt, and in order to prepare the dirt for the worms, the first thing we do is grab a very fine powder, a brown powder. It's made with pumice, and also add some organic matter, which has a lot of fibers, and it makes the dirt more fibrous, and that's good for the worms. After that, we add some water to make sure it's moist. Another step was to collect newspaper and go to the high school, and we shredded it, and you put it only on the top layer. This will keep the worm farm moist, as it will absorb the moisture, but it'll keep the humidity inside the worm farm. So the humidity is very important because it'll make sure the worms survive and eat lots and reproduce and create more worms, and the more worms you have, the more compost you can get out of it.
This summer we were gonna bring smaller greenhouse, which is a family grow box, to try their own to grow healthy vegetables, fresh vegetables, which are beets, cucumber, salad, the lettuce, and tomato. So step 1, we build a small greenhouse, which is a family grow box made of a pallet and with a tarp on top of it. So we put soil in there. So after putting soil in that box, we add a plant, which are the vegetables. So we add fertilizer in the grow box, and we brought them with Honda and trailer to 7 family in our community here in Arviat.
So here at the greenhouse, we monitor the plants once a week. It's every Friday at about 2 o'clock, and it's important that you do it on the same day every week, or you could do it twice in 1 week. What we look for every time we monitor is we want to get the temperature inside the greenhouse. We want to get the percentage of relative humidity in the greenhouse. Also, we want to get how much sunlight is coming into each box, and we have a special meter for that. What's also important too is we want to get the humidity, temperature and amount of sunlight outside the greenhouse as well. This is to compare, I guess, how well the greenhouse is doing, how much warmer it is in the greenhouse, or how much sun is actually getting in. Another thing we do is test the pH in the soil to ensure that it is neutral, and that, let's say, the water is not affecting the pH in a negative way. Another thing we monitor in these boxes is the plant growth. So every plant has its own unique number, and myself, Martha, and all the students have all been trained exactly the same on how to read and get the height of each plant. So we need to do it at the same very precise place every time. We need to make sure everybody, who's about 6 of us or 7 of us, need to do it exactly the same to ensure that we're getting the proper and concise measurement on each plant. And what we do is we count. We have a data sheet where we have all the numbers of the plants, and one of the things we do is we count how many leaves the plant has, and we count we also measure how long the plant is, or how tall it is. So at the end of the summer, we're gonna take out all the vegetables, we're gonna weigh them, we're gonna get the circumference and get the height. This is so we can measure the overall growth of the vegetables, of the plants, and we could also see which soil was the best at growing the vegetables. Also, at the end, once we're done measuring, we're going to give all the vegetables to the community.
I find it fun holding on to cameras and doing something for the summer instead of laying down all summer.
What I liked the most was going out for monitoring and do the invertebrates and harvesting vegetables. What I learned this summer was water monitoring and invertebrates.
I also did learn this summer was fish necropsy and water monitoring. What I like about my job is working with the people that I know, learning new things that I didn't know before. I really like the training with the researchers because I've made new friends. They've taught me quite a few things.
What I liked the most was going out for monitoring and do the invertebrates and harvesting vegetables.
First year no.
Fish ne crops ko vegi laugarata researchers no. Bekatau you la lawam fish ne crops and very monitoring hong mat.
I really like that the researchers came to Arviat. They were really nice people, and I hope to see them again.